Whoa! We're off to quite a start, aren't we? Good morning. And welcome to worship with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura. I am Worship Associate Jim Merrill, and I'm joined by Worship Associate Ruth Capel. Our minister, the Reverend Dana Worsnop, is out of the pulpit today, as she will be for the rest of the month. We are pleased today to kick off the first in a summer series of collaborative services provided by the ministers of the congregations of our channel cluster. Today's service is adapted from a service offered by the Reverend Tamara Casanova Suzuki of Live Oak Congregation in Goleta. I hope you'll appreciate that we will follow a slightly different order of service from our customary order of service because we're adapting hers. And it's even going to be slightly different from what went out yesterday in the email. On Reverend Tamara's behalf and on behalf of our beloved gathered community, including you folks, I greet the good people here in the sanctuary and all of you on Zoom or YouTube. We have been reminded in many ways in the past few weeks of the fragility of our rights, of our responsibilities to one another, and indeed of the fragility of our democracy without our participation. The message that Reverend Tamara brings us today is yet more timely than when she first recorded it for this service. As we consider our rights and responsibilities to one another, let us acknowledge with humility that the land many of us now live upon in Ventura County is the ancestral home of the Chumash peoples. May we find ways to embrace and affirm the legacy of their continued presence on this land. Let me remind you, please, to check the announcements that come to you in UUCV this week, each Thursday afternoon. And I will highlight one announcement because it is sort of timely. The De Benneville Cluster Retreat, live and in camp, where some of us have been up there raking the forest, is going to happen October 14th through 16th. And because of pandemic times, attendance is going to be limited. So if you're interested, check out how to contact Sharon Voigt-Damerel to get registered for camp early. Let us now arrive fully together, for our blessings are multiplied when we share them with each other. Let us enter sacred space.
Good morning. Oh, sorry about that. I'm Worship Associate Ruth Capel, wishing you a beautiful Sunday here in the sanctuary or out there in Zoom land or YouTube land. We invite those who are Zooming or streaming into the service to light a chalice or candle at home as Jim lights the chalice of our free faith here in the sanctuary. We light our chalice this morning with these words from Reverend David Breeden. We kindle this flame in expectation, not in expectation that justice will soon prevail, not the expectation that the struggle will soon be won, yet in the expectation that companionship and joy will be ours on journey. We kindle this flame in community and expectation. Come, let us worship Come, let us worship together.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Carolyn Bierke, the music director, and I'd like to welcome you all here in the sanctuary and online. Our opening hymn is Come and Go With Me. Please rise in body or spirit. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land where I'm bound. There will be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land where I'm bound.
Our call, caught it this time. Our call to worship this morning comes from the Reverend Gretchen Haley, who led us in worship from last week's service at the Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly in Portland. Whatever you have come in anticipating, whatever you expect or worry, for our world, for the future, for our lives, let it go. Make space in your heart to be surprised. Make room in your soul for a new story to take its shape. Let astonishment be possible. At this life that remains a miracle. Imagine here the bursting of joy, relentless and resilient, coming in waves, washing over us with music and story and silence. And still, this dreaming together, being hope for each other and courage to believe in this new day dawning for us all.
Each Sunday, this congregation gives away our collection to an organization in the larger community or to funds that help people in our church. Those at home have two ways to give: through the link posted in the chat or by texting from your phone at 844-901-1779. You folks here present in the sanctuary can text to give, or you can still give, you can still write a check or give cash, then drop it in the basket at the back of the sanctuary after the service. Our offering today goes to Ventura County's Regional Food Bank, Food Share, to provide food for 140,000 of our fellow Ventura County residents each month. Here's how Food Share manages to feed so many. The U.S. Department of Agriculture provides shelf-stable pantry items like rice, pasta, and canned goods. The community donates thousands of cans of food at food drive events. Supermarkets provide surplus products like bread, dairy items, and fresh vegetables. Volunteers glean fresh produce from neighborhood backyards. Farmers donate pallets of fresh fruits and vegetables. Food Share purchases other food items direct in bulk from food manufacturers. And finally, hundreds of volunteers work at Food Share's huge warehouse, 190 pantry locations, and many programs for seniors and children to sort and distribute 36,000 pounds of food each day. All of this collaboration and wise use of resources means that Food Share can take a single donation of just $10 and put 30 meals on the table for a family in need. Thank you for giving generously, as you always do. Be fed is one of the most fundamental rights and responsibilities for our democracy. We give thanks for the generosity of this congregation.
Part of life is its joys and sorrows, and it gives us strength to share these experiences within our worship community so that we can support one another. We place stones in water for both the ups and the downs in our hearts, with the ripples that result reaching out to touch us all. You can submit a joy or sorrow for sharing via the link on the website, uuventura.org, or a link in our Thursday email bulletin, UUCV This Week. Usually, those received by 10 p.m. on Saturday will be shared that Sunday. I invite you now to speak into the gathered community or write into the Zoom chat the names of those you wish to celebrate or memorialize, or those in need of the loving embrace of this beloved community. Please feel free to continue to add to the chat even after the silent pause has ended. Uncle John. Ruth will now place one final stone in the water for all the joys and sorrows, yet unspoken, in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May we be truly grateful for all that is our life.
Please remain seated as we sing Comfort Me. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Dance for me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
I invite you to hear and feel the words of a meditation composed by the Reverend Rebecca Southern. Settle into the posture that is most comfortable for you. Take a moment. So much undone, so much to do, so much to heal in us and the world, so much to acquire: a meal, a healthy body, a fit one, a lover, a job, a better job. Proof we have and are enough just around the corner of us now. And against it, the reality of all that falls short and the limits of today. We honor the limits. If your body won't do what it used to, for right now, let it be enough. If your mind won't stop racing or can't think of the word, let it be enough. If you are here utterly alone and in despair, be all that here with us. If today you cannot sing because your throat hurts or you don't have the heart for music, be silent. The world won't stop spinning on her axis if you don't rise to all occasions today. Love won't cease to flow in your direction. Your heart won't stop beating. All hope won't be lost. You are part of the plan for this world's salvation. Of that, I have no doubt. The world needs its oceans of people striving to be good, to carry us to the shores of hope and wash her fear from the beachheads and cleanse all wounds so they can heal. But oceans are big, and I am sure there are parts that don't feel up to the task of the whole some days. Rest if you must, then, like the swimmer lying on her back who floats, or the hawk carried on cushions of air, perhaps then you will feel in your bones, in your weary heart, the aching, healing sense that this is enough, even this, that we are enough, you are enough, enough.
Our special music today is Creedence Clearwater Revival's Fortunate Son. And at first glance, that might seem like an unusual 4th of July song choice. But I chose it because it is an anthem of the marginalized, the invisible, and the people that make our country run. So I wanted to center all Americans on this Independence Day or day before. So enjoy.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Tamara Casanova Suzuki, serving as the settled minister of Live Oak Unitarian Universalist congregation in Goleta. This sermon is part of the collaborative series of services offered by ministers of the Channel Cluster and is entitled Our Democracy, Our Votes. On the website, We Vote, We Count, there is story after story of American citizens currently either being denied the right to vote outright or being the target of attempts at intimidation to deny their right to vote. It is heartbreaking, appalling, and as un-American as you can imagine. Well, unfortunately, perhaps not so unimaginable after all. Ever since our country was founded, we have been struggling with the issue of representation and who should have the right to vote, and power plays to try to silence some of our American voting public. Many times, the ones being silenced are already struggling with multiple other forms of oppression as people of color or people with marginalized identities. Every generation that has lived since the founding of this country has been charged with holding and defending the ideals expressed in the Declaration of Independence, in our Constitution, and in our Bill of Rights. So many people, including members of my own family and probably members of your own families, have fought and some have died to defend this vision of freedom and justice. This America as a beacon of hope, of a better life, a haven of respite from oppression in other lands. But generation after generation, we struggle to hold the vision of justice, equity, democracy, and compassion, even as we fight step by step, over and over again, against forces that wish to deny the rights of our democratic system to its citizens. First, a quick romp through history to remind ourselves where we've come from. When our country was founded, the right to vote was limited to land-owning white men, but excluded Catholics, Jews, and Quakers. 80 years later, 1856, all white men had gained the right to vote. In 1870, the 15th Amendment gave all citizens the theoretical right to vote, but this right was often denied through intimidation and poll taxes. And also the wording of the amendment, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be abridged, was put to the test 2 years later by the great Susan B. Anthony. As she tried to cast her vote, she was arrested and tried and convicted and fined, and she never did pay that fine. She used her trial as a platform to argue that, go figure, women are citizens too, but she did not prevail. It took almost 50 years of struggle before women won their right to vote with the 19th Amendment in 1920. In the years that followed, various groups slowly gained the right to vote. Native Americans who fought state by state and finally have the right to vote in all states as of 1962, Utah being the last. Asian Americans who have fought various exclusion acts and finally won their right to vote in 1952 with the Immigration Act that eliminates race as a basis for becoming a naturalized citizen. And then there are all the ways that the right to vote has been denied beyond blatant race and gender discrimination. Poll taxes, literacy taxes, gerrymandering, physical intimidation, and the list goes on and on. Those so-called literacy tests used mostly in the South were not about literacy at all. If you were white, you would be grandfathered in. That is, if your grandfather could vote, then you were exempt from taking a literacy test. And the tests themselves, I was a political science major from a prestigious university, UC Santa Barbara. And yet, in looking at a 1965 literacy test in Alabama, it asks civics questions that I'm not sure I could answer 100% correctly. In the mid-1960s, it seemed like we had finally turned a corner. Poll taxes were prohibited, and the 1965 Voting Rights Act was a great step forward in trying to eliminate discriminatory voting practices, including literacy tests. We have all heard the saying that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, and nowhere is this truer than in the ongoing battle of political franchise through the right to vote. In 2013, the Supreme Court ruled on a case that gutted key parts of the Voting Rights Act. In writing for the majority, Clarence Thomas wrote that the blatant discrimination against certain voters that Section 5 was intended to prohibit is no longer evident. Really? In what world are these justices living? Time after time in the past decades, issues have come before the Supreme Court and other lower courts, and time again recently, they have ruled or decided not to hear issues that have constricted voting rights. Issues of partisan gerrymandering, ballot collection, out of precinct voting, all chipping away at US citizens' right to vote, our right to vote. Last year, Republican legislatures in 19 states passed 34 laws restrictive of voting rights regarding absentee ballots, drop boxes, and voter interference. At the same time, the good news, got to be good news in there, the good news is that 25 states passed 62 laws that expand voting rights. And currently, there are 250 restrictive laws in 27 states under consideration. We are in a time when maintaining and even expanding voting rights requires strong action. We have witnessed the hitherto unthinkable with cries of voter fraud coming from the highest office in our land. And as we know, those cries were picked up and continued to be amplified and used as justification for repressive measures to limit voter access. As President Barack Obama put it, we, the people, recognize that we have responsibilities as well as rights, that our destinies are bound together, that a freedom which only asks what's in it for me, a freedom without commitment to others, a freedom without love or charity or duty or patriotism is unworthy of our founding ideals and those who died in their defense. As Unitarian Universalists, we have been and continue to be at the forefront of issues that enhance the inherent worth and dignity of all people, that advocates for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, that affirm the sense of the use of democratic process in society, and that call us to understand ourselves as part of that interdependent web of existence. These are values that are also the bedrock of our democracy. As Unitarian Universalist, democracy is a spiritual practice for us, rooted in the very principles of our faith. Democracy flows in our veins and finds its expressions in our daily lives. Our commitment to justice work, to holding up the idea that all people are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights, can only spring from our spiritual grounding and our ongoing spiritual development if it is to be sustainable for a lifetime. Many of us hold dear the idea that we are to nurture our spirits and heal our world. This in-breath of attending to our spiritual selves and then out-breath of working to bring positive change to our world is what builds power and resilience for the long haul. As Unitarian Universalists, we join ranks with so many others who are living out our ongoing commitment to justice, knowing that a key to any forward progress lies in our electoral process. The fascism, authoritarianism, and white supremacist culture we have seen on display, especially in recent years, are clear and present dangers to our democracy. At General Assembly in 2021, we delegates voted on an action of immediate witness calling on all Unitarian Universalist congregations to join with all those who are actively combating voter suppression and anti-democracy efforts. Our faith compels us to do this. Our country depends on us to do this. The month before the election of 2020, when so much was at stake in that presidential election and beyond, I preached a sermon to many of you, actually, as part of a 4-part collaboration of our UU area ministers on the theme of democracy. And my sermon began with the line, "I am an American patriot." And so I ask, as a patriot, what are you going to do to fight for what we hold truest in our hearts? And I'll throw out a few ideas for you to consider. One is help restore the Voting Rights Act. There are bills to support in whatever form or name that they are introduced and reintroduced. We have For the People, John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, Freedom to Vote Act. Help restore those. Next, support efforts to repeal voter ID laws, expand early voting, expand access to ballot drop boxes. Anything to support these efforts gets us closer to a democracy of one person, one vote. Support automatic voter registration, which helps franchise lower income Americans. Support potentially changing the election day to a 24-hour period, which would run from noon Saturday to noon Sunday, or make election day a holiday. Support voter franchisement for ex-felons. Support nonpartisan redistricting fairness. Support ranked choice voting so that we might have a truer voice in electoral outcomes. Make every vote count and either fix or get rid of the Electoral College. Speak out against misinformation or disinformation around elections and candidates. And finally, most importantly, just get involved. Join other UUs in the UU the Vote movement. Get active in local elections. Consider running for office yourself and or support like-minded candidates. Thomas Paine once wrote, "Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must undergo the fatigue of supporting it." And it was one of our own, the Unitarian minister Theodore Parker, who wrote, "Democracy is direct self-government over all the people, for all the people, by all the people." Years before Abraham Lincoln borrowed those words for the Gettysburg Address. Democracy runs deep in our Unitarian Universalist souls. So let's all roll up our sleeves, grateful to have each other to help sustain us on this journey. As we've heard in the quote by Goethe and Anster, whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Because once we start to take action, hope is everywhere. So may it be, and blessings on us all.
Please join me in our closing hymn, Life Calls Us On. Here in reverence now we gather for the blessings we have known, with a pledge to one another that we journey not alone. Joy and sorrow goes before us. Waken here to keep us strong. Blend our voices in the chorus of creation's living song. Courage bids us lift our eyes upward to the shining skies. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on. Loyal guides in love and duty, lead us with a trusted light. Blessed are they whose inward beauty shows the path of truth and right. Honor is their earthly prize. By their work we realize faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. We have shared a radiant hour when the truth has made us free, and the Spirit's gracious power dreamed of good that yet shall be. Bright the path before us lies. Joyful pilgrims now we rise. Life calls us on. Life calls us on. Life calls us on. Life calls us on.
Please join me in reading the words on the screen as we prepare to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment, those we carry into our lives until we are together again.
Before I send you off with a few benedictory words, I will point out to you that if you check UUCV this week, you'll see how to contact David Smith to join in the UU the Vote letter writing campaign. And I've done it. It's pretty easy and rewarding. I leave you with these words from Andrea Hawkins Kemper. This is the work we are called to, and this is the call we answer now. To be the living embodiment of our principles, to be about the work of building the beloved community, to be a people of intention and a people of conscience. Go forth in love. Go forth in peace. May it be so.
Amen.